I was packing my suitcase for the Alaska cruise when my phone rang at 6:15 in the morning. The caller ID showed a number I recognized immediately, but the timing made my stomach drop. My physical therapist, Jennifer, never called this early. Never. In the 3 years she'd been helping me recover from my knee surgery, she'd always been strictly professional, always kept to our scheduled appointments. So when her name flashed on my screen before sunrise on a Tuesday, I knew something was terribly wrong. "Jennifer?" I answered, my voice still rough from sleep. "Robert." She was breathing hard, like she'd been running. "Robert, please don't hang up. I know how this is going to sound, but I need you to listen to me very carefully. You cannot get on that cruise ship tomorrow." I sat down on the edge of my bed, my half-packed suitcase forgotten. "What are you talking about?" "Your son, Marcus. I overheard him yesterday. Robert, I think. God, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think he's planning to hurt you. On the cruise." The words didn't make sense. I'd raised Marcus alone after my wife died 15 years ago. I'd worked double shifts as a fire chief to give him everything he needed, put him through university, helped with his wedding, loaned him money when he and Tiffany bought their first house. My son, my only child. "Jennifer, I appreciate your concern, but that's absolutely ridiculous. Marcus would never—" "I recorded it," she interrupted. "I have proof." That stopped me cold. Jennifer wasn't the type to make wild accusations. She was methodical, careful, the kind of person who double-checked everything. If she was calling me at dawn with a recording, something had happened. "Tell me everything," I said. She took a shaky breath. "Yesterday, you remember Marcus came with you to your appointment? While you were getting changed, I went to grab my notes from the other room. Marcus was on his phone in the hallway. He didn't know I was there. Robert, he was talking to his wife about insurance payouts, about how much easier their lives would be once you were gone. He said, and I quote, 'The cruise is perfect. Elderly man, unstable on his feet, tragic accident, overboard. Insurance payout, plus inheritance, 1.8 million. Enough to make everything go away.' My hands started shaking. That's not possible. I'm so sorry, Robert. I know how awful this sounds. But I couldn't let you get on that ship without warning you. I couldn't live with myself if something happened, and I'd said nothing. I thought about Marcus, about the man I'd raised, the little boy who used to dress up in my fire chief uniform and pretend to rescue his stuffed animals, the teenager who'd held my hand at his mother's funeral and promised we'd get through it together, the grown man who'd called me just last week to confirm the cruise plans, who'd sounded so excited about this father-son trip. "Send me the recording," I said quietly. 10 minutes later, I was sitting in my kitchen, listening to my son's voice, planning my murder. Jennifer's phone had picked up every word, clearly. Marcus talking to Tiffany about their gambling debts, about the $400,000 they owed to some very dangerous people, about how my life insurance and inheritance would solve all their problems, about how they'd already changed my beneficiary forms, how they'd forged my signature, how they'd even researched which cruise ships had the most accidents involving elderly passengers. I listened to it 3 times. Each time, I felt a piece of my heart break off and die. I'd been a fire chief for 30 years. I'd run into burning buildings, pulled people from car wrecks, made split-second decisions that meant the difference between life and death. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared me for this moment, for the realization that the person I loved most in the world wanted me dead. I called my lawyer first, then a private investigator. By noon, I had a team assembled. By evening, I had a plan. The investigator's name was Sarah Chen, a former RCMP officer who'd gone private 5 years ago. She came to my house that night, and I showed her everything Jennifer had sent me. "How certain are you that you want to pursue this?" she asked. "Once we start digging, there's no going back. You might find things you wish you hadn't." "He's planning to kill me," I said flatly. "I need to know everything." Sarah nodded. "Give me 48 hours. What she found in those 48 hours destroyed any remaining hope I had. Marcus had been planning this for months. The investigator pulled his browser history, his financial records, his text messages with Tiffany. It was all there, laid out in horrifying detail. They'd researched cruise ship accidents extensively. They'd looked into life insurance policies and inheritance laws. They'd even found online forums where they'd asked hypothetical questions about undetectable poisons and how to make drowning look accidental. But it went deeper than that. Marcus had been stealing from me for over a year. Small amounts at first, transfers I'd assumed were legitimate expenses. Then, larger sums. By the time Sarah finished her investigation, my son had already taken nearly $100,000 from my accounts. Money I'd saved over 3 decades of working 60-hour weeks, of sacrificing vacations and luxuries so I could give him a better life. The really sick part? They'd used my money to gamble, to fund their addiction, and when that wasn't enough, when they'd run up debts they couldn't pay, they'd decided the easiest solution was to get rid of me entirely. Sarah showed me the travel insurance policies Marcus had taken out in my name. 3 different companies, each policy worth $500,000, all with accidental death clauses that paid double. He'd forged my signature on every single one. "He's booked you into cabin 8247, Sarah said, pulling up the ship's deck plans on her laptop. "It's on the outside rail, starboard side, deck 8. The railing there is lower than the other decks, and there's a blind spot in the security camera coverage. Perfect spot for an accident." I stared at the cabin layout, feeling sick. My son had researched the best place to throw me overboard, had chosen our cabin based on where the cameras couldn't see, had planned every detail of my murder with the same care I'd once used planning his birthday parties. "What's your next move?" Sarah asked gently. I thought about it for a long moment. Part of me wanted to confront Marcus immediately, to scream at him, to demand to know when my son had become this monster. But the fire chief in me, the man who'd spent 30 years staying calm in crisis situations, knew better. "We gather more evidence," I said. "We make sure this case is airtight, and then we let him make his move." Sarah's eyebrows rose. "You want to let him try?" "I want to catch him in the act. I want there to be no question, no doubt, no possibility of him talking his way out of this. Can you arrange for undercover officers on the cruise? I can make some calls." "Do it. I'm getting on that ship. And when Marcus tries to kill me, I want it all on camera." The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. I had to act normal, had to pretend nothing was wrong when Marcus called to confirm our departure time. Had to smile and thank him when he offered to drive me to the port. Had to pack my bags knowing my own son was counting down the hours until I was dead. Jennifer called me twice that day. "Are you sure about this plan?" she asked. "Robert, this is dangerous. What if something goes wrong?" "I've been running into danger my whole career," I told her. "This is just another fire to put out." But my hands were shaking when I said it. The morning of the cruise, Marcus picked me up at 8 o'clock. He was cheerful, energetic, talking about all the excursions we'd planned, the shows we'd see, the restaurants we'd try. He loaded my suitcase into his trunk with a smile, hugged me when I got in the car, called me Dad like he meant it. I wanted to be sick. At the port, he helped me check in, carried my bags to the cabin, made sure I was comfortable. The whole time, I was thinking about the recording, about the insurance policies, about the gambling debts and the forged signatures and the research into cruise ship accidents. Every smile felt like a knife. "You okay, Dad?" Marcus asked at one point. "You seem quiet." "Just tired," I said. "Long morning." He patted my shoulder. "Get some rest. We've got 2 weeks to catch up properly." 2 weeks. That's how long he thought I had left to live. That first night, I barely slept. Sarah had confirmed that plainclothes officers were stationed throughout the ship, that every camera had been checked and backup recordings were being made. My cabin was wired with audio surveillance. If Marcus so much as thought about hurting me, we'd have evidence. But knowing that didn't make it easier. This was my son, the baby I'd held in my arms the day he was born. The toddler who'd cried for me when he had nightmares. The teenager who'd told me I was his hero. When did it all go wrong? The answer came on the 3rd night. Marcus suggested we have dinner together, just the 2 of us. He'd made reservations at the ship's fancy steakhouse, insisted on ordering wine, was more attentive than he'd been in years. "I know I haven't been the best son lately," he said over dessert. Work's been crazy. Tiffany and I have been stressed. But I want you to know how much I appreciate everything you've done for me, Dad. You sacrificed so much after Mom died. I don't think I've ever really thanked you properly. If I hadn't known what I knew, I might have believed him. I might have been touched by this sudden display of affection. Instead, I saw it for what it was, softening me up, making sure I'd trust him when he suggested we step out onto the deck later, when he offered to help me get some fresh air, when he positioned me near that low railing in the blind spot of the cameras. "You're welcome, son," I said, and the word tasted like ashes in my mouth. After dinner, just as I'd predicted, Marcus suggested a walk. "Beautiful night," he said. "Want to check out the stars from the upper deck?" The upper deck, deck 8, where our cabin was, where the railing was lower, where the cameras couldn't see. "Sure," I said. "Sounds nice." We rode the elevator in silence. Marcus was fidgeting, I noticed. Nervous energy. Was he psyching himself up? Running through the plan in his head? Thinking about the insurance payout? The deck was nearly empty when we stepped out. Cool air, dark sky, the sound of waves. Under different circumstances, it might have been peaceful. Marcus walked to the railing. "Come look at this, Dad. You can see the northern lights." I stayed where I was. "Marcus, I need to ask you something." He turned, surprised. "What's that? How much do you owe?" His face went white. "What? How much do you owe the casino? Or is it a private bookie? How much debt are you and Tiffany in?" For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then his expression hardened. "I don't know what you're talking about. 400,000, according to my investigator. That's a lot of money, son. That's the kind of money that makes people desperate. Makes them do things they never thought they'd do." "You hired an investigator?" His voice was cold now, all pretense dropped. "To spy on me? To save my life?" His jaw clenched. "Dad, you're confused. Maybe we should get you back to the cabin. I know about the insurance policies, Marcus. I know about the forged signatures. I know about the cabin placement, about the research you did into cruise ship accidents. I know you've been stealing from me for over a year, and I know that right now you were planning to push me over this railing and make it look like a tragic accident." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the ocean seemed to hold its breath. Then Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. "You're paranoid, old man. All those years of smoke inhalation must have finally caught up with you. I have recordings, Marcus. I have your browser history. I have financial records. I have everything." His smile faded. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I pulled out my phone, played the recording Jennifer had sent me. His voice filled the air. "Insurance payout plus inheritance. 1.8 million. Enough to make everything go away." I watched the color drain from his face. Watched the moment he realized he'd been caught. "Dad, I can explain." "Explain what?" "How you were going to murder your own father. How you stole $100,000 from the man who raised you alone. How you forged insurance documents and researched the best ways to make my death look accidental." "You don't understand the pressure we're under," he shouted. "Those people, the ones we owe money to, they're going to kill us." What was I supposed to do? "Not kill your father," I roared back. "Ask for help. Tell me the truth. Do literally anything except plan my murder." "You wouldn't have helped," he said bitterly. "You would have lectured me about responsibility, about making better choices. You always do. So your solution was to kill me?" He ran his hands through his hair, pacing. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. It was supposed to be quick, painless. You'd never know what hit you. And Tiffany and I would be free. We'd pay off the debts, start over, live the life we deserve." "The life you deserve?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Marcus, I gave you everything. Everything. I worked myself to the bone to make sure you had opportunities I never had. I paid for your education, helped with your wedding, loaned you money for your house. And you repay me by stealing from me? By planning to throw me off a cruise ship? That money was mine anyway," he snapped. "It's not like you're going to live forever. I was just accelerating the timeline." I stared at my son, this stranger wearing my child's face, and felt something break inside me that would never heal. "You're right," I said quietly. "I'm not going to live forever, but I was going to live to see my grandchildren grow up. I was going to spend my retirement traveling, volunteering, maybe even dating again. I had plans, Marcus. I had a life. And you were willing to take all of that away for money. It's not just about money. It's always about money. I cut him off. You and Tiffany live beyond your means. You gamble away your savings. You rack up debts you can't pay. And instead of facing the consequences of your choices, you decide to kill me. Your own father. What are you going to do? He asked. And for the first time, I heard fear in his voice. Turn me in? I already did. The undercover officers appeared from the shadows like ghosts. 4 of them, badges out, weapons drawn. Marcus Anderson, one of them said, "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, forgery, and grand theft." My son looked at me as they handcuffed him, really looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes wasn't remorse or shame or even love. It was rage, pure, undiluted fury. "You're going to regret this," he hissed as they led him away. "When I get out, you're going to pay for this." "No, Marcus," I said. "You're going to pay for this. For the first time in your life, you're going to face the consequences of your actions." I watched them take him below deck, watched my only child, the person I'd loved more than anyone in the world, disappear into the belly of the ship in handcuffs. And then I went back to my cabin and cried for 3 hours straight. The cruise ended 2 days later when we docked at the nearest port. Marcus and Tiffany were formally charged, extradited back to British Columbia, and held without bail. The trial lasted 4 months. The evidence was overwhelming. Between the recordings, the forged documents, the browser history, and Marcus's confession on deck, his lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but I refused. I wanted this to go to trial. I wanted a jury to hear exactly what my son had planned. I wanted the world to know what he'd done. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Marcus got 12 years. Tiffany got 8 as an accomplice. They're both in federal prison now, and according to the conditions of my restraining order, they're not allowed to contact me. Not that they've tried. I sold the house after the trial. Too many memories. Too many ghosts. I bought a smaller place in Victoria. Something manageable for a 68-year-old man with a bad knee and a broken heart. But there was one more thing I needed to do. 6 months after the sentencing, I called Jennifer and asked her to meet me for coffee. She'd testified at the trial, had been subpoenaed for her recording. She'd been nervous on the stand, but her testimony had been crucial. "Thank you for coming," I said when she arrived at the cafe. "Of course." She sat down across from me, looking concerned. "How are you holding up?" "Better," I lied. "Getting there." She nodded, not quite believing me, but kind enough not to push. "I need to thank you," I continued, "properly, for saving my life." "Robert, you don't need to." "Yes, I do." I slid an envelope across the table. "Jennifer, you had every reason to mind your own business. You risked your professional reputation, your peace of mind, your safety. You didn't know if I'd believe you. You didn't know if Marcus would come after you. But you called me anyway. You recorded that conversation. You testified in court. You did everything right, even when it must have been terrifying." She opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a check for $350,000. Her eyes went wide. "I can't accept this." "Yes, you can. You're going to take that money and buy yourself a house. A real house, not a rental. Somewhere you and your kids can build a future." "Robert, this is too much." "You saved my life," I said simply. "How do you put a price on that?" Tears started rolling down her cheeks. "I didn't do it for money. I did it because it was the right thing to do." "I know. That's exactly why you deserve it." I pulled out another envelope. "This one's a job offer. I'm starting a foundation. Second Chances Foundation. It's going to help single parents who are struggling financially, who need support but don't know where to turn. I want you to run it. Salary's $120,000 a year. Full benefits, flexible hours, so you can be there for your kids." She was crying openly now. "Why are you doing this?" "Because my son taught me that blood doesn't make you family. Love does. Loyalty does. Doing the right thing, even when it's hard, that's what makes you family. You're more of a daughter to me than Marcus ever was a son." Jennifer hugged me then, this woman who'd saved my life, and I held her while she cried and felt something shift in my chest. Something that had been broken, starting to heal, just a little bit. The foundation launched 3 months later. Jennifer turned out to be a brilliant director, passionate about helping people who reminded her of her own struggles. We've helped 47 families so far, paid for groceries, rent, childcare, given people breathing room to get back on their feet. And next month, we're doing something else. Something I've been planning for a while. I'm taking that Alaska cruise, the one Marcus and I were supposed to do together. But this time, I'm bringing Jennifer and her 2 kids. I've booked us a suite, planned excursions, even hired a photographer to capture the memories. Because this is my family now. Not the one I was born into or the one I raised, but the one I chose. The one that chose me back. Sometimes I think about Marcus. Wonder if he's learned anything in prison. Wonder if he ever thinks about what he did, if he ever feels remorse. The prison sends me updates occasionally. He's refused every attempt at family counseling, refused to see me when I tried to visit. His lawyer says he's still angry, still blames me for his incarceration. Maybe someday he'll understand. Maybe someday he'll realize that I didn't destroy his life, he destroyed it himself. That his choices, his greed, his willingness to murder his own father for money, those are what put him in that cell. But I'm not holding my breath. I'm 68 years old. I'm a retired fire chief with a bad knee and a family that isn't related to me by blood. I run a foundation that helps people who need it. I'm planning a cruise with people who actually love me. And every morning when I wake up, I'm grateful to be alive. Because that's what Jennifer gave me. Not just my life, but a reason to live it. A reminder that there are still good people in this world. People who do the right thing, not for reward, but because it's right. I've spent my whole life running into burning buildings to save people. But in the end, it was a 42-year-old physical therapist who saved me. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure she never regrets it.